Hey everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Afternoon, Rush Nation. Sorry, this is late. This is the third time I'm recording this show. I've had more tech issues today, but that's okay. Doesn't matter. We are firing. We are cooking. Good game last night. Credit to the Dolphins. They hung in there. Some questions on offense. 140 odd yards of passing is not going to get it done in this league. But you got to give them credit for the tenacity of hanging in there before it being run away, and class really sort of driving through there. And the difference between the two teams is the play calling and the bravery. I felt that the Dolphins played very scared, kept it really short, didn't conduct passing, didn't really utilize some of the weapons that they do have. But it was good to see that they put some effort in. They definitely looked more inclined to really sort of try and tackle harder and prevent D, and at the same point really trying to keep drives sustained and build some momentum. It just didn't quite pan out for them. And they showed that they can win a couple of games in this season, but I think they're just going to struggle throughout. And I think if they don't get this fixed and they don't get it fixed soon, then they are staring down the barrel of a new head coach. So we're going to find out how that goes in the next few weeks. But I don't expect Mike Daniel to be fired in the next 2 weeks. So I guess we'll see what happens after that. But it was also going through yesterday. There was an injury to Tucker Kraft. It seems to be on the surface of things he's probably going to be okay. So we are going to just roll with the fact that we think he's going to be okay. But add Luke Musgrave for free right now because he's going to be a valuable potential handcuff, same as Max Mayer was the week before, even if it doesn't transcend. So one to definitely keep an eye on, and just add as that insurance just in case. I'm sure you've all got the bench spots for that. Let's quickly get through these final 6 games and get prepped up for the weekend. I'm going to share my rankings for these games, and we'll start off with Chargers v Broncos. Broncos 1-1, putting up some points on O, but perhaps need to tighten that D a little bit. Chargers favored by 2.5, over under set at 45.5. This is a really interesting game to call. I actually think that the Chargers are playing really, really well at the moment. Their passing rate is significantly over expected. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how that correlates to them playing against one of the better defenses in the NFL, who haven't necessarily been at the races as much this season, but they should definitely bounce back. And also how Bo Nix and company bounced back from a defeat to the Colts last week. Should be a close game. I will pick the Chargers to win this. The over-under line looks good, though. I have Justin Herbert as my quarterback 8 this week. I have Bo Nix as my quarterback 14 for the week. Moving on to the running backs here, and I have J.K. Dobbins at 26. I have Amarian Hampton at 28. I think he's going to struggle to run on this D. R.J. Harvey at 40, Najee Harris at 43. So I'm not in any desperate state to start any of these running backs this week as a result. As for the wide receivers, I think this could be a good week for Ladd McConkey. He has the best wide receiver cornerback matchup of the lot in terms of the Chargers receivers. So expect him to get utilized here. He is wide receiver 13, followed by Courtland Sutton. He's wide receiver 23. You need a bounce back from him. Troy Franklin's a must start. He's at 36, but he has got all the upward momentum. Keenan Allen is the volume play. He is at 37. I have Quentin Johnston all the way down at 45. He got a long touchdown, which helped him out, but he has the Patrick Surtain experience on Sunday. That's going to be a difficult one for him to overcome. I wouldn't be too surprised if he drops outside the top 50 in my rankings when I finally post them on Sunday, my final rankings. Having said that, all my rankings as of now are available in the Discord, so make sure you hit those up. Evan Ingram, tight end 18, and with a questionable tag, not someone I will be playing in any lineups this week. But the Denver Broncos D are at 13. You can start them, especially when you would have drafted them pretty high to do so. The Chargers are at 15. They're a flex wherever you play. You can give them a shout as well if you need someone in this week. But I think there's better options on the waiver wire, like the Falcons, like the Buccaneers. Cameron Dicker is the kicker 5 this week. Will Lutz is the kicker 18. Going to move the screen over to the running backs rooms here, and we're going to talk about the Seahawks v. the Saints. This is going to be a game that has the Seahawks favored by 7.5, over under 41.5. They're just not expecting the Saints to score many points, and it's not a surprise. They have probably the worst quarterback play in the NFL. As a result, Sam Darnold, I think he's a safe pair of hands. They talked about on the waiver wire. Upside might be capped if they run away from this game early, especially if they're showing these signs of improvement on offense. So I have Sam Darnold at 21 this week. And again, I think it's a very safe 21. Could be an opportunity for him to pop up to 15. Can't see him falling much lower than 24, 25 this week. So he is a safe option if you were sort of desperate for a short-term fix. I'd still much rather probably play a Michael Penix, but I definitely would have him in that sort of him and Russell Wilson kind of tier. With Jake Browning, I have all three back to back to back. So they're ones I'd definitely be interested in playing because they all have their own sort of upside in their own sort of way as well. As for Spencer Rattler, he's at 32. I don't know if I'd even start him in a super flex at the moment. It is that bad a quarterback performance. Running backs, I have Alvin Kamara at 15. Need to see more out of the receiving game for him, but the rushing game has been extraordinary. Kenneth Walker is at 16. Zach Charbonnet is down at 32. He carries a questionable tag. If he shakes off the questionable tag, he could get a lot of garbage time work if the Seahawks are well ahead in this one. As for Jackson Smith and Jigba, he is at 8, wide receiver 8 this week. Chris Olave is at 39 again, is not getting the yards per target volume that we would be expecting from a deep wide receiver. Cooper Kupp is at 47. I think it's more the game script more than anything else is why I'm a bit down on him this week, despite a good game last week. Juwan Johnson is the equivalent of the wide receiver 16, as we talked about on last night's show. He is tight end 10. Don't need to start the Barner or Iorios of this world at tight end. And then the Seahawks are at DST 6. Don't need to consider the Saints. Blake Groupie's down at, I think, kicker 31. But Jason Myers is at 15 this week in my rankings. Feel pretty confident that this game is going to be one that we're going to sort of fast forward on Game Pass and not watch with too much unless there is a great storyline that all of a sudden builds out from it. Moving on to the third game of the window, and it's Bears-Cowboys. This is a game that Danny was saying, get as many players in for your DFS slate because this is going to be a barn burner. It's going to be high scoring. The bookies have this as a over-under of 50.5. This has actually moved in. This was 51.5 when I did the first recording of this a few hours ago, but this is now dropped to 50.5. The Cowboys are favored by 1.5. It's hard to tell which way this is going to go. But I do think that the Dallas Cowboys, if we see what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, are probably going to outlast the Bears here. Dak Prescott is my quarterback 6 this week. Caleb Williams is my quarterback 10. Both of these, again, must start. And I'd be looking to get as many of these players and these rosters in my fantasy lineups, except for maybe the running back position. Javonte Williams at 19. I think he's going to get capped a little bit with the game script. Jonathan Swift is at 23, and he's questionable. The other two, Sanders and Monangai, they're 50 and 51. They could see a lot of garbage time work depending on how this game script kind of pans out. But at the moment, I've got them low because I expect this to be a pass, last possession score kind of win sort of game. So CeeDee Lamb, as a result of that, is going to be my wide receiver 1 this week. George Pickens is my wide receiver 21, followed by Raymond Dunze at 26, DJ Moore at 29. I'm not down on them in the sense of the game script. I just think in half-point PPR, which is what this scoring is, the volume is just not going to be there as to some of the other guys. But in a full-point PPR, I'm definitely probably a little bit higher as well, because I do think they're going to usurp a little bit more, and the yardage will be there for them to cater that. So that is why I'm kind of sort of hedging a little bit. But Roman Dunze, also keep an eye on Omalade Zaccheaus. I have him all the way down at 77, but actually I have him as a good bet to be an outside touchdown crew. They all have really good matchups this week against their cornerbacks. Jake Ferguson is at 7, and then Goldkomet is at 26, and Colston Loveland is at 28. Not players I'm necessarily reaching for in fantasy games this week. And then I have the Dallas Cowboys at 21, the Bears at 23. Again, that aligns with the game script I kind of mentioned that this last score win is going to be a lot of points. Brandon Aubrey, my kicker 1. Cairo Santos is my kicker 23 this week. And that's kind of where I'm sat in this game. But yeah, try and get as many in. If your desperation plays on Omalade Zaccheaus is probably going to be the best one. to try and pick up off a waiver wire if you're chasing points, especially after last night's performance. Moving on to the last game of the slate, 49ers versus the Cardinals. 49ers favored by 2.5, over under set 45.5. I just look at this game and I think that it's going to be quite slow. I think most of these points will come in the second half. I don't expect Brock Purdy to go. I think it's going to be Mac Jones. So I think it's going to be a slow game that will develop more in the second half and get closer, be sort of a witching hour, kind of last hour of red zone. I think this will be the game focus, other than maybe that shootout that's going on in Dallas, if that happens. Kyler Murray's at 13 this week. I just think there's a capped upside against a good defense. Matt Jones at 25. I think he's got the potential to do a little bit better, but I think the Cardinals D is being slept on a little bit. I think they're a pretty good defense. I think he's going to struggle to get the ball deep and probably cheat a few yards. I also think turnovers come into play this week as well for him. Christian McCaffrey is my running back 1. James Conner is at 24. That's because Trey Benson is eating into his load. He's at 38 this week. And so as a result, I'm just a bit cautious on James Conner. But hopefully he proves me wrong and gets a bit more than that. Marvin Harrison Jr., highest rated wide receiver here. He is at 20 for me this week, followed by Pearsall and Jennings. They're back-to-back. Although Jennings does have a questionable tag, he is at 33. Pearsall is at 32. They're the only 3 wide receivers you need to worry about. Trey McBride, he is 2 on my wide receiver list, as you can see, or tight end list, as you can see on the screen here. As for Jake Tongs, he's at 27. Desperation play, good doink touchdown, but not someone I'm sort of hanging my hat on for positive production. San Francisco 49ers are at 12. The Arizona Cardinals are at 20, but it wouldn't shock me if they climbed up a bit from there. Like I said, sneaky good D, could force some turnovers here this week. And then as for the kickers, Chad Ryland is at 16 and Eddie Pinheiro is at 21. We move to Sunday Night Football, and it is the Chiefs, and they're going to be playing the Giants. Perfect game for the Chiefs to get right and really sort of start to get their season off, get it up and running. They're favored by 6 against the Giants. Over-under is set at 45.5. Again, I just think this is going to be a pretty easy one to describe. I think this is going to be mostly one-way traffic. I do think the Giants will hang in there in a bit of a shootout, but it will mean their run game will pretty much disappear in this one. Patrick Mahomes, I've got him at quarterback 5. I think this is the sort of game that we can expect him to really sort of take out on the opposition to starting 0-2, and he's going to kickstart this season with a bang this week. I have Russell Wilson down at 22 this week. I think he will throw a lot in the spate of a shootout. It's how accurate he's going to be. That's what we're going to be waiting on. But he is leading the league in passing yards, so I could be wrong here, but I'm sort of capped with where he is. But if I'm chasing the upside and I'm thinking of like him or Mac Jones, I'm definitely going like Russell Wilson, not just because he's ahead of my rankings, but the upside is there as well. If it's him and Darnold, again, I'm probably leading him, Russell Wilson. Now, I would say that Russell Wilson has the much lower floor, but he has the much higher ceiling. And if you're chasing that ceiling play, then Russell Wilson's the guy you got to go for. Isaiah Pacheco, he's running back 31 for me. I just think they're going to spread it around a little bit. Cam Scalabo is at 35. Tyron Tracy with a questionable mark, he's at 39. If he does rule out, Cam Scalabo will move up. Kareem Hunt is in the late 40s. He's for early 40s, so he's at 42 in my rankings this week. He moves up a bit more if it's PPR. As for wide receivers, my neighbors, he's at 2 in a shootout, or in a sort of try to come back, not a shootout, but try to sort of get from a negative game script. It should benefit him quite significantly. Marquise Brown is at 30. Wanda Robinson, he's had a great start to the season, but he has a questionable tag, as he normally does at this point in the season. He's at 35. Tyquan Thornton is another one of those sort of players to keep an eye on. Could be a desperation play. He's the long ball specialist here. And if they're trying to get cheap points, Kansas City, this could be a week for him to come up with one of those sort of weird 4 catches for 100 yards and a score kind of lines. So good option there for him. As for the tight ends, Travis Kelce, he's at 5. Theo Johnson, he is at 29. No need to start him. Just keep it where it is for him. And then the DSTs, the Kansas City Chiefs, they're at 7. I'm not starting the Giants DST. And then as for the kickers, I have Graham Gano at 27, but Harrison Butker, he is at 6. And then we move on to the final game, Monday Night Football. It should be an absolute barn burner, one worth staying up for. It is the Ravens versus the Lions. Ravens favored by 4.5. The over-under 53.5. Should be an excellent game. We're going to see who the Lions really are. We saw them beat up a really poor Chicago team and put a 50 burger on them at last week, but they lost in week 1. So we're going to get a bit of a better picture as to what the Lions are and who the real Lions are. The Ravens as well will be looking to bounce back from that week 1 defeat to the Bills, and they did a little bit last week, but probably didn't show their teeth as much as we would have liked. Again, I think they're going to go all out, and this sort of game will suit them. I have Lamar Jackson as my quarterback 2, Jared Goff as my quarterback 12. Both of these are must-start options this week. Derrick Henry at 5, Jahmyr Gibbs at 6. And then David Montgomery, he's at 29. Again, I would say all 3 of them are must-start options this week as well, and be forcing them into your lineups. As for the wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown is at 5. Zay Flowers, he's at 10. Again, both must starts, as is Jameson Williams. He's at 22. If you're chasing touchdown makers from the Baltimore side, Rashad Bateman, 57. He's not a bad shout. DeAndre Hopkins at 64, not someone I will be chasing, but I might get some Devontae Walker if I'm desperate. At wide receiver 87, he has the potential to get in the end zone. This could be a good one to sort of chase a maybe sort of 10-point play if you're desperate to get that kind of production into your flex spots. But it is a desperation play at best. Sam Lepore is my tight end 6. Mark Andrews, tight end 11. Both of those definitely starting options this week. And then we look at the DSTs. Baltimore 18. Detroit at 29. Tyler Loop is my kicker 2 this week. And Jake Bates is at 14. You can definitely start all of those options. Going to be a cracking week in the NFL. Looking forward to this. If you are looking forward to the rest of the weekend, make sure you join our Discord. Check the ranks out there. You can also join our Patreon, join our WhatsApp chat, get some inside information in there as well. But really appreciate each and every one of you. Post your questions in the Ask Murph channel. I'll try and get to those as and when I can. But first of all, just thank you so much for supporting the channel. Give us a like and subscribe as well. It's really, really important to help grow the channel. We've seen some great growth, but really could appreciate some more. So please hit the like, hit the subscribe, write us a comment. Comments really go a long way to helping us get found. So we'd really appreciate that as well. But Rush Nation, enjoy your weekend. Looking forward to collecting some dubs on Monday and celebrating in the Discord. Until then, don't forget, as always, keep rushing.